Hello and welcome to the Power Platform U YouTube page. My name is Anthony Mancuso and I'm a Power Platform Technology Specialist here at Microsoft. And today's video is going to be taking you through a process mining tutorial. For those that are not familiar, this process mining tool is built into Power Automate to allow you to ingest your business data as it sits today to understand where the bottlenecks in your process are and be able to take action on some of those bottlenecks to be even more efficient than you are today. As part of this, you're going to need a little bit of sample data. You're going to need to download the process mining application, so I will have links for you to do that down below in the description here. But otherwise, this is just an effort to take you through a simple process of creating a process within the process mining tool, ingesting a subset of data, and being able to analyze that data. So without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so you see here now that I've landed on our Power Automate Maker portal. The easiest way to navigate here is make.powerautomate.com. For those that are not familiar, process mining is part of our Power Automate family, and there's a very good chance that a lot of you have already done things like created cloud flows, created desktop flows, so this Maker portal should look familiar to you. Now to navigate to process mining, it's as simple as in our left navigation here, clicking the process mining button. I will put a disclaimer, if you don't happen to see process mining in this navigation like I have it up on my screen here, just click this More button down below, and it should be in this list that you see right here. If you still don't see it there may be some security permissions that you have to have your administrator set up just to confirm that you have access to the process mining tool. For the sake of the trial, you should have that set up right away. So if we navigate over to process mining now, a couple things I want to point out here. First and foremost, there's a companion desktop application that you should install that allows you to analyze and delve deeper into the processes that you record based on the event logs that you're bringing in. So you notice the option to download that application at the top. I would absolutely recommend that. For the demo we're going to show today, we'll be using that as well. Next here, you see that we have the ability to create a new process. And we could start blank. We can even use some of the templates that we have, taking us through a finance process or a supply chain process. And if I scroll down a little bit further, you notice that we even have these templates pre-built for you that is set up in a way for you to more easily ingest your data from these systems. And you notice it's not just Microsoft systems that we see here. We've got templates for SAP accounts payable, SAP procure to pay, some of those popular modules on the SAP front so you can analyze maybe some of those financial processes. For the sake of the demonstration that we're going to do today, we are going to just start blank by creating a new process. And it's as simple as giving that process a name here. So we're going to come in, and part of the demonstration that I'm going to be doing is looking at a process where we are issuing refunds, maybe on a product or service that we offer as a company. And I want to understand the different discrepancies of how people are processing those, how long it takes, if there's any quirks out there that I might want to be aware of or bottlenecks that I need to alleviate. So we're going to come in and just call this refund process. You can give it a description if you want. That said, it's as simple as that to create a process. Alright, so now that we've given that process a name, we see that the next part here that we need to select is the data source. Of course, with process mining, the idea is bringing data in to understand a process and build out a map and identify those bottlenecks. And as you're probably aware, the process mining or the process map is only going to be as good as the data that you import into the solution here. And we have a couple different options for importing data. The first one here is using process mining by importing data through a data flow. Or if you're leveraging an Azure Data Lake today, you can connect directly to that. What this is going to do is bring event logs in from your source enterprise systems and be able to create a process map and do the process mining based on the event logs that are coming from that said system. Now, the other option you have here is this concept of recordings. And this is more specific to task mining in particular, wherein this is literally just a desktop application that sits on an end user's computer. and it's a record button. They click a record button, they go through a specific task as part of a larger process, and that is able to mine that task for us. Now, the big way to differentiate between these two, process mining and task mining, is when you think about process mining, that's an entire end-to-end process. When task mining in particular might just be a small individual subset of tasks or an individual tasks as part of a larger process that exists within the enterprise today. For today's demonstration that we're going to be going through, we are going to import data by way of a data flow here. Now you notice that that creates that process for us now, and the first thing that we're prompted to do is identify the data source, where we want to bring this data in from. And you have quite a few options here, as you see. You can hit an API directly, you can hit SQL Server, you can bring in an Excel spreadsheet like we're going to be doing today. So you'll notice that I have this area here for text CSV, and if I click that now, the options I have are either to link to a file directly if it's hosted in something like OneDrive, or you can upload a local file. So I'm going to browse, and here is my event log from my source financial system specific to refunds. Now, once that's uploaded, it already has my connection set up here. If you don't have a connection established, it'll prompt you to do that. All you have to do is create that new connection and plug in your credentials to establish that. Now, in the bottom left here, we're going to click Next, and in just a moment, this is going to bring us into a tool called Power Query. Now, for those that are Power BI users today, you're probably familiar with this tool to transform your data. Why would you want to transform some of your data through here? Well, you might want to only look at a specific subset of date ranges, or you may want to change activity names, for instance. Or if you're bringing in multiple data sources, you might want to have a common column or a unique ID or what have you that will connect those records together from the disparate data sources. That's kind of the concept of what you would want to transform your data for. For today's example, we're not going to do any transformation through here, and we're just looking at this one data source. So I'm going to click Next again in the bottom left here. And the next thing we're going to get into is actually mapping our data. So these attribute names that you see on the left here are columns that were brought in from our source system, in this case the Excel spreadsheet that we had. And you notice that we have these pre-built attribute types right here. Event level attributes, single use attributes that you see at the top. And what we have to do now is basically go through each one of these so that we can map this data effectively. I'm going to start down here in somewhere like invoice value. We'll leave the top three as is. But for invoice value, because this is a numeric data type, I want to come in here and say that this is a financial per event. For resource in particular, we might want to come in and change that one specifically to our single-use resource attribute type. Start timestamp, we have another one for event start. End timestamp, we've got event end there. And then for case ID, we also have one for case ID. And the activity name, we're going to use activity at the top here. And it's as simple as that to map our data from our information that we've brought in to what the process mining tool is looking for. And now it's as simple as clicking in the bottom left, this Save and Analyze button. Alright, so after a few seconds or a few minutes, depending on the volume of the data sets that you're bringing in, you'll notice here that now we've created an actual process map based upon the event log data that we've brought in upon import. And this first view that you see is part of the Power Automate Maker portal. This process mining tool is part of the Maker portal. Is high-level KPIs about your process, the variance, the number of cases, number of activities, the average case duration, the different loops, and so on and so forth. But I mentioned earlier that this web view is really just high-level KPIs about your process. If you want to delve deeper into the individual steps or nodes of this process, it's encouraged to use the process mining desktop application, which we'll do in just a second here. But before I do that, I do want to show you as well that we do have a Copilot, just like a lot of our other products that we're bringing to market today, a Copilot for process mining now that you can use to come in and do things like some of these recommended prompts here to summarize my process. And in just a few seconds, that will spit out natural language description or summary of the process based on the data we brought in and the process map that was created. So keep that in mind. You can just ask questions about your process by way of this Copilot. But as I mentioned, I want to take this opportunity now to go into the process mining desktop application to dig a little bit deeper into this process. Now here it's going to start you out on your first screen for my processes, and you notice that I have my two in here, including the refund process that we just created. If for whatever reason you don't see your process in here, just make sure you look in the top right of the application here and make sure you're in the same environment that you used to create that process in the first place. So I'm going to come in and look now at our refund process. And here we can see that process map being brought over. And we're going to spend a lot of time on the right-hand side over here in this customize or filter pane to understand a little bit more about this refund process, as I mentioned, that we have, and understand maybe where we have some of those bottlenecks. Now let's first start on the right-hand side here in the Customize tab, coming in and doing things like looking at areas of frequency, performance, maybe we'll look at rework and finance. Before we get into that, I will show you too that you do have some ways to edit the visualization of the process map too. You can align to the backbone here of the process. You can go left to right, for instance. So however you prefer to view that process map that's easiest for you, absolutely do that by using some of these visualization sliders on the right here. Now, I want to take a look first and foremost at our metric around frequency. And I'm going to use the metric of the total case count. Now, what do I infer from this? Well, I infer that everything starts from an invoice entry, and then things start going down a little bit of a different path. Where I'm seeing some interesting stuff here specific to our refund is that more often than not, after we've confirmed the customer payment, we're either offering refunds with a standard voucher or we're doing it here with a special voucher. Doing it with a special voucher way less than we're doing standard. And the other way that you can tell this is visually by these heat maps that you see around these steps or these nodes here. For instance, invoice entry with 133 cases, that heat map is pretty significant. Versus refund with a special voucher, looks like we're doing that pretty rarely. Okay, it's an interesting, concept or a KPI, but still doesn't tell us much of a story yet. So let's look a little bit further in our Customize tab here over at Performance. And this we're going to be looking specifically at the mean duration of each one of these individual nodes. Well, hey, we've got some pretty significant information here. You notice most of the steps in this process generally take around that 3 to 4 hour range. But that area we saw earlier for refunding with a special voucher might take us upwards of 15 to 16 hours in the process, which could potentially be a huge bottleneck. Again, visually, you can see this is a huge heat map right here. This is what's taking up significantly more time than any other step in this process. The other thing I might want to look at is the financial impact of the process today to help us tell a little bit better of a story. So if I click on the finance button on the right hand side here, I'm going to change my metric over to mean invoice value in each portion of this stage. Well, now this is really interesting because we see that for the most part in every stage of the process, the impact of the invoice value is generally around $1,300 to $1,400. But in that area for refund with a special voucher, that's only impacting around $600 of our invoice value. Well, that tells a pretty interesting story now, right? Because as we saw, this is impacting a small amount of the refund value, but it's taking up a majority of our users' time, and it's happening pretty infrequently. So we have a pretty good story to tell now. If we want to take that even a step further, if we go back here, maybe we want to compare now two different processes. One where the path goes down the route of refunding with a special voucher and another one that goes down the path of refunding with the standard voucher. What I can do is I can click this node within the process here, and you'll notice that it brings up some more detailed information on the right-hand side. But now what I can do is come in and create a new filter based on these attributes. So let's go ahead and create those now. You notice that the first attribute that pops up, because of where we started in our process map, is an attribute that the filter result would include refunds with a special voucher. What we want to do now is in the top left here, click this Add Filter button, and under Cases here, we're going to add a second attribute. And we're simply going to filter that based on filters that do not include now. And if we go to the values here, that pops up for us. We're not going to include refunds that include standard vouchers, and we'll hit Apply in the bottom right. So now we've got this view. We are only looking at the cases that have the special voucher. In the top right hand corner now, you have the option to save this as a new view. So if I come in now, we could just change this to refund with special voucher. I'm going to uncheck the option for private view and click save. And now I want to do the inverse. I also want to create a view that is only looking at the refunds with the standard vouchers. So the way I can do that is in the bottom left here where we have this filter pane, which is what we just created on that view. I'm going to go ahead and flip our filter result to say it does not include special vouchers, but it does include standard vouchers. We'll click Apply in the bottom right. There's all those cases for that. And again, I'm going to come in the top right and save this as now just refunds with standard vouchers. And I'll uncheck private for that too. Alrighty, so now we have our two views that we have the ability now to go in and compare together. And the way that we're going to get there is in our left navigation under this Process Compare button here. And you'll notice that this is everything we're looking at so far. What we need to do is add a layer to this Compare button at the top here. If we look at our views there, if we went in now and did something like this refund with a special voucher, and we click Add Layer. Let me go ahead and zoom out here. A little touchy. Very touchy. There we go. Now you see that we are comparing, excuse me, the two different views that we had. The refund with the standard voucher and the refund with the special voucher. This is pretty cool because what this has set up for us is even by way of the color coding, the green nodes that we have here are steps in the process that are happening in both the paths that go down the special voucher route and the paths that go down the standard voucher route. The red options are for special, and the blue here is for standard. If I bring open now our Customize tab again, and let me switch over to this metric where we're looking at mean duration here, this is pretty significant. What we saw earlier, there were only something like 9 cases of the processes that had a refund with the special voucher, but it is eating up upwards of 17 hours of our people's time, and it had a very low impact on the dollar value of the invoice. It was in that range of, I think, $680 or so. If we look at the standard voucher route, we glean a little bit more information here. One, we see that there is a potential that an invoice could get rejected, meaning that there would have to be some rework done. But even if that is the case, that's still only taking up 2.8 hours of our users' time versus the 17 hours it's taking up when people are issuing the special vouchers. And when we're actually doing the refund itself, it's only taking, about an hour and a half to do that. So we're gleaning some pretty significant information through here. What I can do now is I could even save this view as well that has the comparisons as well. So if I come in to save at the top, we'll go ahead and save this, and we'll just say special versus standard, and we won't mark that as private. So now you have this view to go back to. And what we're finding here again is refunds with the special voucher. It happens only a few times in the process compared to the other steps. It has a relatively low amount of money going through it, and it significantly increases the mean duration of our process from end to end. Versus when we're looking at standard vouchers, they do have an option for some of these cases to be rejected, but that said, even though it causes a little bit of potential rework and time, what it's telling us is it's taking a lot less time in the process, and it has a lower impact in terms of our overall invoice value as part of the process. So I know we kind of covered a lot there, but you can see how we sort of piece together bits of information from this process when we start bringing this event log information in. So as a company, you might say to yourself now, we are going to maybe try to just stop doing these special vouchers, figure out why we're doing them in the first place, and we're going to reduce the amount of times that we do that. Maybe it's only in a special circumstance. And we're primarily going to be working with standard vouchers because we know it has a higher impact on our invoice value and it takes significantly less time. And you could take this even a step further. We, again, introduce now that we do have the potential rework that happens here because invoices could be rejected. Then you drill down even further. Why are these invoices getting rejected? Can we glean any of that from the event log data that we're bringing in here? Okay, so that wraps up our demonstration, high-level demonstration and tutorial of setting up your very first process mining process. Just as a quick overview, what we did is we created the process, we ingested the data, and we analyzed some of that data using the process mining desktop application. If you do have any questions as you are setting this up on your own or trying the tool out for the first time, please do not hesitate to reach out to your business applications specialist here at Microsoft. We'd be happy to get you on the right track. We are committed to making sure that you are experiencing the most value as you can out of this tool and gleaning some of those bottlenecks or inefficiencies that you have in your process today by leveraging this tooling here. Thank you so much, and we will see you in our next video.